welcome to the Movie Trivia Schmoedown. I'm your host, as always, Oswald. Well, we had the semi-finals of the Ultimate Schmoedown Teams Division. The first match being Wolves of Steel versus Above the Line. Wolves of Steel and Above the Line both performed brilliantly throughout the match, proving their great measure as teams. Wolves of Steel finally perhaps fully living up to their hype, and Above the Line proving to be true executioners within the Movie Trivia Schmoedown. And of course they were executioners of Wolves of Steel as a team, which is unfortunate in this match given that Wolves of Steel performed so well, but were unable to defeat Above the Line, that had achieved a new high score record, which again of course has a certain asterisk just due to the nature of how one must achieve a high score. Yet it is still a definite achievement within the game. It is a shame to lose Wolves of Steel, and I would caution some hesitation for Mark Riley in his initial reaction to losing, which teetered towards whininess. I'm just saying, just don't be whiny, okay? But I'll give them, after that point though, there was some genuine emotion, let's say, between Wolf and Riley as he announced his permanent retirement, or at least seemingly permanent. Following that, we had the second semi-final, Top 10 versus Team Action. This match was essentially the opposite of the previous match, which was two titans proving their great measure. Whereas Top 10 versus Team Action was both teams performing rather poorly, the worst performance throughout the whole tournament for both of them needing multiple choices and missing so many questions within the first round. Team Top 10 unfortunately does this again and again, or at least two of the three times so they've lost, and it's a commonality for Roka though, where they suddenly perform so poorly like you think they're new to the game, which is always unfortunate when that happens, and this was the case here. A part of it was that first round, which was not impressive on either teams. However, Top 10 also, for some reason, went past Tarantino and giving them opponent's choice. I mean, there were enough things on that. They should have just stayed with Tarantino. On the other hand, Team Action did not prove their measure in their own category. I mean, how don't you know Raul Julia was in Street Fighter and that it was his final role? I feel that's extremely common knowledge. I knew the rest of the answers too without multiple choice, but at least that one seems extremely obvious. Neither team though proved their measure at all, and Top 10 should do anything they can to stop movie release dates from being on their wheel, given that they know absolutely nothing about movie release dates whatsoever. However, then we had the third round, where Top 10 did prove their measure again in scoring all 10 points. And then we had Team Action with two incredibly easy questions. The second question that gave Team Action the win caused Top 10 to walk out, of course, and reasonably so. Who was the villain in Spider-Man 1? You could have just seen a toy commercial once and known that. You didn't need to see the original Spider-Man film to know that answer. You just need a vague recollection of, who's the Spider-Man's villain? Yes, the Green Goblin. So that question was utterly ridiculous, especially for semifinals in the Ultimate Schmoedown. However, we're going to continue with the finals in November with Above the Line versus Team Action. If these two matches are anything to go by, Above the Line should have this victory with ease. Following that, we had the championship match of Merle, Dan Merle, of course, the champ himself, versus Christian Harloff, the commissioner. Christian Harloff pulled the Vince McMahon and became champion. However, this was not what I would say was a championship match by any measure. Both had so many misses throughout. Neither of them knew Danny Glover was in Witness. I thought that was fairly common knowledge for at least a certain age group anyway. And it was not a great match, unfortunately. Harloff pulled off the win within this great match in a potentially somewhat controversial decision where he achieved an extra point through the speed round by listing a challenge, and I would say this was somewhat unfair to Merle, because although Merle probably would have gotten the question on Independence Day wrong if Ken Knapsack had not kept reading, it was not Dan's fault that Ken kept reading, it was Ken's fault, and really they should have just thrown out the question altogether, which would have kept them at an even play, and would have left a sudden death between Harloff and Merle. and we would have had a far more dynamic ending than the one we had. However, after Harloff won in this not especially invigorating game, I'm sorry to say, Morl announced his retirement, unfortunately, which is most unfortunate. I understand a champ wanting to retire now and again. However, this was not the match to go out on if you were going to retire. This was just not a going out in a burst of flames. It was going out in this smallest of whimpers. And I sincerely hope we see Murrell again that way to redeem himself from this unfortunate performance. It was not a way for him to lose the belt, unlike, say, his one against Roka, were both performed impressive, or his performances at the championship Tufa that we got last time he played, where again he performed brilliantly. So hopefully we'll see Merle again, since this is no way for a true champ to go out. Now with that, we're going to be going into the singles ultimate tournament Schmoedown soon, and I'm most excited. However, first we have a qualifying match, a fatal 5-way with the normal play rather than in a kingdom. I'll be interested to see how this plays out exactly, and what is the rules. Will it be based on elimination and doing several first rounds type, or will they do a standard 3 and it's just who has the least points? I'd actually prefer if they did the standard 3 and it was just based on who did the best in a normal match. However, we have to take a look at our competitors to see who will win. In the fatal 5-ways is Scott Mance, Jason Inman, Roger Meyer Burnett, Elliot Dewberry, and a mystery competitor. Who will the competitor be is unknown to any of us. Matt Adichie was on the list, for example, and he could potentially easily win. However, let's just forget the question mark and not even allow that to be part of the predictions, since it's impossible to know who it is. Mance has the clear power of knowledge in this group. He has what it takes to be a champ if he can get his mind into being a champ. I don't know if he can in such a high-pressure situation as this. Against that, he has his teammate Jason Inman, who we all know is the weaker of the two in Team Trek. So it is hard to say with any certainty that Inman could beat Mance. It would make no sense if he did. So in those two, I would say Mance wins. Following that, we have Roger Meyer Burnett, who has performed extremely poorly in his matches, almost strangely so. He was certainly the crutch to Andraco in their matches together. And finally, we have Elliot Dewberry, who always performs better in teams than he tends to in singles. Not a bad singles player by any measure, but not a great one. All of them have deep flaws. Therefore, if the question mark player is someone truly great, this could easily be a wipeout for the other 4. However, in this 4, I am forced to predict Mance because he does have the skills. He is the most skilled, as long as he gets his head in the match, rather than out doing whatever he does when he starts getting in a deep, far reaches of the galaxy like he so often does. So for the fatal 5-way, I predict Scott Mance will take the victory, although of course that question mark player could always win. That is the movie trivia Schmoedown for today. I will be back next time to break down the full bracket of the singles ultimate Schmoedown tournament. This is your host, as always, Oswald Pendlebury. Thank you, and good night.